Okay, so you sent us Will Brink's Muscle Building Nutrition,
Yeah,
and you want to dive deep into it to figure out how to build some lean muscle.
exactly.
The thing is, though, this book also covers supplement
Yeah.
reviews and even has an exercise section from Charles Poliquin, which are all really great resources.
Yeah.
But we are going to focus on kind of laying the nutritional groundwork first.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because that is really the foundation for everything
And
else.
for you, wanting to get a really solid understanding, but without you feeling totally overwhelmed,
Right.
we're going to go through kind of a structured plan
Mm-hmm.
to pull out the most crucial information from Brink's work.
Exactly. Our goal here is to really distill those key principles
Okay.
so you can immediately grasp what's most important.
Gotcha.
We'll start with that fundamental concept of energy balance.
Okay.
Then we'll explore how protein, carbohydrates, and fats contribute to muscle growth, including, when timing your carb intake might give you an edge.
Okay, cool.
And then finally, we'll touch on how to estimate your individual calorie needs.
Okay, so think of it as your shortcut to the essential knowledge in Brink's book.
Exactly.
All right, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Starting with the absolute bedrock, energy balance.
Okay.
Brink kicks things off talking about where your food actually goes.
Right.
And it boils down to this equation. Energy intake equals energy expenditure plus energy storage.
Right.
It sounds simple,
Right.
but is the driving force behind any changes in your body weight, whether you're aiming to, lose fat, maintain your current physique, or in your case, build muscle.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how that energy expenditure side breaks down.
Okay.
Brink outlines three main components. The biggest one is your resting metabolic rate, or RMR. This accounts for up to 75% of your daily calorie burn.
Wow. Okay.
Think of it as the energy your body uses just to keep you alive and functioning, breathing your heart-beating brain activity.
Yeah.
And here's a key insight. Lean muscle tissue is metabolically active, so the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. More muscle, higher baseline burn.
Exactly.
The second piece of the puzzle is the thermic effect of a meal.
Yeah.
Or TEM.
TEM.
Sounds a bit scientific.
It does, but it's quite straightforward. TEM is the energy your body expends to digest, absorb, and process the food you eat.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting and potentially actionable for you is that different macronutrients have different TEMs.
Okay.
Protein requires more energy to break down than carbohydrates or fats. So if your goal is to maximize calorie burn even at rest, prioritizing protein in each meal can give you a slight but consistent edge throughout the day, a small tweak with noticeable long-term effects.
And that's a cool takeaway.
Yeah,
So strategically including more protein can subtly boost your metabolism.
exactly.
And the third component is the energy expenditure of physical activity,
Yes.
or EEPA.
Or EPA.
This is where we have the most direct control, right?
Absolutely. EEPA is all the calories you burn through exercise and any other physical movement.
Yeah.
As Brink emphasizes, this is the most variable component of energy expenditure. The more intense or prolonged your activity, the more calories you burn.
Okay.
This is where you actively contribute to tipping that energy balance towards storage, ideally as muscle.
Okay. So we've got calories coming in and calories going out through RMR, TEM, and EEPA.
Right.
Now, how do we figure out how many calories our listener actually need to gain muscle?
Okay.
Because that's the primary goal we're focusing on here.
Brink discusses a few ways to estimate this, from more detailed formulas to a simpler rule of thumb.
Okay.
He does mention the Harris-Benedict equation and another validated method, but then cuts to a more practical approach for active individuals aiming to gain weight.
Okay.
Around 30 to 45 kilocalories per kilogram of body weight per day.
Okay.
The higher end of that range is for those looking for more significant gains and who are very active. To put that into perspective, a kilogram is about 2.2 pounds.
Okay, let's put that into a real-world example.
Okay.
Say you weigh 200 pounds,
Right.
which is roughly 91 kilograms.
Yeah.
If we aim for somewhere in the middle of that range, say around 40 kilocalories per kilogram, that comes out to about 3,640 calories per day.
Okay.
If we go with a higher end, 45 kilocalories per kilogram, we're looking at approximately 4,095 calories.
Precisely. Brink uses a similar example. He also wisely points out that if you know you tend to gain body fat easily, it might be prudent to start at the lower end of that 30-45 kilocal range,
Yeah.
and then monitor your progress, adjusting upwards gradually as needed. It's about finding the sweet spot for your individual metabolism and body's response.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've got a ballpark for calorie needs.
Right.
Now let's dive into the building blocks themselves, the
Mm.
macronutrients.
Okay.
First up, protein.
All right.
Everyone knows protein is crucial for muscle growth.
Mm-hmm.
Brink uses the term anabolic quite a bit in this context.
Yes. And as he clarifies, while in bodybuilding circles, anabolic is often specifically linked to muscle building in a broader biological sense, it simply refers to the process of building complex molecules from simpler ones.
Okay.
So technically, even building bone or fat is anabolic. However, in the context of this book and our discussion, we're definitely focusing on its role in muscle protein synthesis. He then breaks down what protein actually is, chains of amino acids.
Yeah.
Think of amino acids as the individual Lego bricks that make up the protein structure,
Okay.
right? The sum of non-essential and conditionally essential amino acids. And then you have peptides, which are shorter chains of these bricks, and proteins are the long, complex structures.
Right. What I found interesting is Brink directly addressing the long-standing myth that high-protein diets are inherently bad for a healthy individual.
Right, that's a very common misconception, and Brink tackles it head-on, especially in the context of active people. He highlights that the scientific literature doesn't support these fears for healthy individuals, and that emerging research actually suggests potential benefits to higher protein intakes, particularly for those engaged in resistance training.
Okay.
It's important to remember that protein's functions in the body are incredibly diverse, extending far beyond just muscle repair and growth.
Absolutely. It can be broken down and used as an energy source through a process called gluconeogenesis. It's a fundamental component of all our tissues, and as we touched on earlier, it has a significant thermic effect. Brink even mentions that the energy expenditure from digesting large amounts of protein can account for up to 20% of your total daily calorie burn.
Wow.
That's a significant metabolic advantage.
Exactly. And when we consider protein requirements specifically for athletes, Brink references research indicating that needs are often higher than the standard recommended daily allowance, RDA. Studies suggest that strength-trained individuals might require anywhere from 1.4 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass per day to optimize muscle growth and recovery. Think of essential amino acids as the ones your body can't produce on its own. You absolutely need to get them from your diet.
Gotcha.
Non-essential your body can make and conditionally essential become important during times of stress or intense training. Ensuring you're getting enough of all of them, particularly the essentials, is crucial for muscle repair and growth.
So going back to our 200-pound, 91-kilogram person, even at the lower end of that athletic range, say 1.4 grams per kilogram, they'd be looking at around 127 grams of protein per day. Brink also mentions the simpler 1 gram per pound of body weight rule, which for our example would be a solid 200 grams.
Right.
He notes that you can certainly consume more if you prefer, but he uses that as a practical and easy-to-remember guideline in the book. He then follows that up with a helpful list of good, high-quality protein sources and some less ideal options, which is always practical advice you can immediately apply.
And that list is key for ensuring you're not just hitting a protein number, but also getting a good array of amino acids.
Okay, moving on to fats. This is another macronutrient that has often been unfairly demonized. But Brink is clear that the idea that fat is fat and should be avoided is not only inaccurate, but can actually hinder your muscle-building goals.
He's absolutely right. The crucial point is understanding that fats are a diverse group of molecules, and not all of them have the same effects on the body.
Yeah.
He breaks down the different types. Monounsaturated, saturated, polyunsaturated, and within the polyunsaturated category, the important omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, highlighting their distinct roles and impacts on our health.
And he emphasizes that essential fatty acids, EFAs, which are types of polyunsaturated fats our bodies can't produce on their own, are absolutely crucial for a wide range of bodily functions, from hormone production, including testosterone, which plays a vital role in muscle growth, to supporting immune function and overall cellular health.
What's particularly interesting is Brink's deep dive into the benefits of omega-3 fatty acids. He lists a significant number of positives. They're anti-lipogenic, meaning they can help block fat storage. They're anti-catabolic, potentially helping to preserve muscle tissue. They have anti-inflammatory properties, which can aid in recovery. They can increase fat burning and thermogenesis, improve insulin sensitivity, which is important for nutrient partitioning, and they can even influence gene transcription.
Wow.
It's a pretty impressive list of benefits.
Wow, those omega-3s sound like nutritional powerhouses. He then provides a practical recommendation for overall fat intake, suggesting a balanced ratio of roughly 1/3 polyunsaturated, with an emphasis on omega-3 rich sources like fatty fish flax seeds and walnuts, 1/3 monounsaturated found in things like olive oil and avocados, and 1/3 saturated fats from sources like red meat and dairy.
That's a sensible and well-rounded approach.
Yeah.
He also stresses the importance of getting these fats from whole, unprocessed sources whenever possible, and provides a list of unhealthy fats you should minimize or avoid altogether, such as processed vegetable oils, high in omega-6s, trans fats commonly found in some margarines and fried foods, and anything listing partially hydrogenated oils in the ingredients.
All right, let's tackle carbohydrates.
Okay.
Brink starts by explaining their basic chemical structure, simple sugars linking together to form more complex starches and fibers. He also makes a key point right off the bat that might surprise some people. There are no essential carbohydrates because the body can actually synthesize glucose, its primary fuel source, from protein and fats, through that process we mentioned earlier, gluconeogenesis.
That's an important distinction. While the body can technically function without dietary carbohydrates, they certainly play a significant role, particularly for athletes and those engaged in intense training. They are a readily available and efficient source of energy.
Right.
Brink then introduces the Glycemic Index, NGI, which is a measure of how quickly a carbohydrate-containing food raises blood glucose levels compared to a reference food like pure glucose.
And he points out some interesting nuances, like how some foods we might think of as complex carbs can actually have a relatively high GI, while some simpler sugars don't cause as dramatic a spike.
Right.
He explains how the GI is related to insulin, that crucial hormone that plays a key role in regulating blood sugar, shuttling nutrients into cells for energy or storage, including fat storage, and also has anabolic effects on muscle tissue by facilitating protein synthesis.
Right.
He also touches on the concept of insulin resistance, which is something we hear more and more about in relation to overall health and body composition. Think of insulin like a delivery truck, helping shuttle nutrients like glucose into your cells for energy or storage.
Yeah.
Insulin resistance is like having cells that have trouble opening the door for the delivery truck.
Exactly. And while understanding the glycemic index can be a useful tool for making informed food choices, Brink cautions against relying on it as the sole determinant of carbohydrate quality. He highlights research that has compared the effects of different GI carbohydrates on things like endurance performance and fat burning during exercise, noting that lower GI options often provide a more sustained release of energy and may promote better fat utilization during lower intensity activities.
He also brings up a really insightful study involving obese teenage boys that found that consuming high GI meals actually led to significantly greater overall food intake later in the day compared to consuming low GI meals, even when the initial calorie content of the meals was the same.
Wow.
That really underscores the potential impact of carbohydrate quality on appetite regulation and long-term calorie balance.
It does, however. Brink then transitions to a critical point for those focused on building muscle: the strategic use of higher GI carbohydrates immediately following an intense workout.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
After a tough training session, your muscle glycogen stores, which are your body's stored form of carbohydrates in the muscles, are depleted. At the same time, levels of the catabolic hormone cortisol tend to be elevated. Brink explains that consuming high GI carbohydrates, along with a source of fast-digesting protein in that immediate post-workout window, can help rapidly replenish those depleted glycogen stores and counter the potentially muscle breakdown effects of cortisol due to the quick spike in insulin. He gives practical examples of post-workout meals like white rice with lean chicken or a whey protein shake mixed with a higher GI carbohydrate source such as dextrose or even something like puffed rice cereal. So if I finish my workout around 7 p.m., am I still getting a significant benefit from those higher GI carbs then, or is there a more specific window I should be aiming for?
That immediate window, generally considered to be within the first hour or two post-exercise, is when your muscles are most receptive to replenishing glycogen,
Okay.
and when that insulin spike can be most beneficial for nutrient partitioning towards muscle recovery. While you'll still get some benefit later, the sooner you can get those high GI carbs and protein in after your workout, the more effectively you'll be supporting recovery and muscle growth.
Okay.
However, Brink is quick to emphasize that outside of this specific post-workout window, even with lower GI carbohydrates, moderation is still key.
Yeah.
Consuming more carbohydrates than your body can use or store as glycogen will ultimately lead to the excess being stored as body fat.
Okay, so we've covered the individual macronutrients in detail. Now Brink introduces his athlete's food pyramid, or as he terms it, the Brink pyramid.
Yeah.
He points out some of the shortcomings of the standard USDA food pyramid, particularly for individuals with athletic goals.
Yeah.
What are the key differences in his approach?
The Brink pyramid restructures food priorities based on their importance for athletes and active individuals. The foundation of his pyramid emphasizes lean protein sources along with a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, recognizing their micronutrient content and role in overall health. The next level up focuses on healthy fats, including those essential fatty acids and good quality oils.
Hmm.
Then come complex carbohydrates, which serve as a primary energy source but are positioned lower than protein and healthy fats. Importantly, the Brink pyramid also explicitly includes quality nutritional supplements as potentially playing a supportive role in optimizing health and performance. Right at the very top of the pyramid in the minimized category are unhealthy and bad fats, as we discussed earlier.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense for someone focused on optimizing their body composition and athletic performance compared to the standard pyramid, which, as Brink notes, can inadvertently encourage higher intakes of refined carbohydrates and doesn't address the role of supplements at all.
Yeah.
His pyramid provides a much more targeted and goal-oriented framework for making food choices.
Precisely. It's a visual representation of prioritizing nutrient-dense foods that directly support muscle growth recovery and overall health in active individuals.
Finally, in terms of practical application, we need to touch on meal frequency. There's that persistent bodybuilding myth floating around that the body can only absorb or utilize a certain amount of protein at a time, often cited as around 30 grams, and therefore you need to eat very frequent, small, protein-containing meals throughout the day. Brink tackles this belief head-on.
He does, and he essentially debunks it, stating that there's a lack of robust scientific evidence to support that specific 30-gram absorption limit.
Right.
He mentions his own extensive review of the medical literature, and discussions with researchers in the field haven't revealed the original basis for this widely circulated advice. The reality is that your body is a very efficient system, and it can certainly process and utilize more than 30 grams of protein in a single meal.
So the key takeaway for you, our listener, is that you don't need to feel pressured to obsessively space out your protein intake into numerous small meals throughout the day based on this unsupported claim. Your total daily protein intake is a far more critical factor for muscle growth and recovery than the frequency of your meals.
Exactly. While meal timing can have some nuanced effects on things like satiety and energy levels, the overall focus should be on hitting your total daily macronutrient targets, particularly protein and overall calorie intake.
Okay. We have covered a significant amount of information in this deep dive into Will Brink's muscle-building nutrition.
We have.
Let's quickly recap the most important insights you should take away.
So to summarize, the foundation of muscle growth lies in understanding and achieving a consistent positive energy balance.
Right.
You need to consume slightly more calories than you expend.
Right.
Then it's about strategically prioritizing sufficient protein intake to provide the necessary building blocks for muscle repair and growth.
Gotcha.
Don't neglect healthy fats, which are crucial for hormone production and overall well-being. Carbohydrate intake should be viewed strategically with lower GI options, generally making up the bulk of your diet to manage energy levels and insulin sensitivity, while higher GI carbs can be particularly beneficial in that immediate post-workout window for glycogen replenishment. Finally, adopting a dietary framework like the Brink pyramid can help you make more informed food choices that align with your muscle-building goals.
Right, as Brink humorously points out, there's no magic bullet or secret trick.
Yeah.
It's about understanding these fundamental principles and consistently applying them to your diet.
Right.
And remember, this deep dive has only explored the nutritional aspects of your materials.
Which leads to a crucial question for you, our listener. Considering the intricate nature of individual responses to dietary changes and the constantly evolving field of nutrition science, what specific aspects of your current eating habits or your understanding of these principles might you now be curious to investigate further based on this discussion?
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
And we strongly encourage you to delve into the other sections of Will Brink's book, especially his evaluations of various supplements and Charles Poliquin's insights on effective training methodologies. Gaining a comprehensive understanding from all the resources you provided will equip you with the most effective tools for achieving your muscle-building objectives.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.